So, uh, Ona, you were just talking about how you'd been to Chatham business school, a business college, and so how did you get from there to nursing, or was there something else that you were doing in between?
So after I got discouraged, I
Mm-hmm.
worked in a tomato factory for a year. I had to do something. And that's when Reverend Perry came up to one of our church. We had something, conference going on. Constantine Perry was in. He had a big mouth, and he knew everybody in the government, in Toronto. So he said, there's a nursing assistant course coming up in led by the government. In 1946, the first class starts October 46, and there'll be one class a month formed to give girls a job to help the RNs after the war because they needed more nursing hands. So they're calling them registered nursing assistants. The course is 9 months. You get paid $60 a month, and you apply. You girls here in Buxton, and use my name as a reference. And if there's any, this thing that's not you're not receiving any answers, give me a call.
Wow.
Well, we were accepted, and Cora Prince and I came to Hamilton. I'll never forget it. October 1946, the same year my brother started as a porter on the train, the CNR. And Cora Prince had an aunt living in Hamilton. And Cora's mother said, oh, well, you can stay with Aunt Mag and Uncle Ed Duncan.
Oh, dear, Mrs.
And so we asked him, oh, Aunt Mag was so happy that her niece was coming to Hamilton. She was very highly
lady.
And so, anyway, we boarded the train at Chatham Station, came into the CN station down in Hamilton, and met this little man, Uncle Ed. He was a little short fellow, and he had a little car, Ford what they call Model T Ford with a rumble seat. Cora started laughing when she saw him. She said, oh my God, how are we going to fit in here? He threw them little old plastic bags we had in the back. I could still see him, and drove us to Aunt Maggie, their house, 420 Houston Street, Hamilton.
Wow.
And oh, we were so happy. Oh, Aunt Mag had the most beautiful dinner ready for us. Oh, you girls, you're welcome now. And they had the bedroom. They had two bedrooms. They had one, and Cora and I had one between us. And then showed us the next morning how to get to the trade school in North and East Hamilton. And that's where the barracks were, where the soldiers used to be, and they made it into a trade school. All I remember seeing the Barnes boy, he took up, Bob Barnes, took up some trade. And we had our center called the Nursing Assistant Center. Mrs. Duxbury was our teacher, and Mrs. Whitney, I can still see them. We were so nervous, he said. Oh. Then we had uniforms, green scrub dress with a white double-breasted apron there over it. And after a month, I think, we got a cap with a green band on it. Oh boy, was that. Now I got a picture of me in there learning to bath a child.
Wow.
It's in my drawer down there.
I would love to
I
see that. So,
But you know, we both enjoyed nursing.
hmm
We had to go put practicum in at the Hamilton,
Hospital.
what's the place in East Hamilton? You know, we're older people. Beth, what's the name of it?
Retirement home.
No, you know, nursing home. You know, down East Hamilton.
Mm.
Still there.
hmm
Or Yvonne Alexander was.
So, Ona, you
On
and
Maplewood, anyway.
St. Peter's.
Yeah, St.
Yes,
Peter.
yeah. Mom
That-
worked there for a long time.
Yeah, we had to work there. Well, back in the day, honey, you worked, then you had to change them diapers, go down and wash them all off with a brush down in the big old scrub room. And then you had to collect all the false teeth. They were all in the basin, everybody's
Everybody's.
teeth.
How could you tell one from the other?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yes.
And we had to clean them all with this brush and then start sticking them in the mouth, see who fit who.
Oh,
Cora said, oh my God, I can't do this.
So-
So we persevered.
But Ona, was you and your friend was that work particularly for you, or did all of the people in the program, all the women in the program, have to do the dentures and the and the diapers and whatnot? I was just wondering if they only gave that
just
job to the brown
relegated
folks.
To you? Was that your job and nobody else did it?
No, all of
Everybody,
us.
okay.
All of us in our
Okay.
in our class. No,
Okay.
no. All
Mhm.
of us who were in the class.
Mm-hmm.
We had to go through this. And then we spent a month at St. Joe,
Mm-hmm.
and the sisters had us cleaning the kitchen. I'll never forget it. You know, and we couldn't go in certain spots at St. Joe, you know, but we had to help and work with some of the patients
Mm-hmm.
doing the menial jobs. Then after that, we worked at the general. And then we got a little higher up there. And then got our time all spent, this 9 months. And then they said you could have a job at the general. And Miss Campbell was the head of the Hamilton General Hospital. I'll never forget her. And said, well, you girls have a job and you get $90 a month. We thought, my God, we can't live on $90. We got $60 for training. Yeah. So we stayed a month, and a girl, one of our buddies who was working along with us, said, you know, we can go up to the sanatorium. You make more money. And we can take the bus, showed us how to take the bus and get up there. So up we go and apply at the SAN. Well, we got a job up there. We had to work in the children's ward for a certain length of time until your BCG become positive that you will work with active TB patients.
Right.
And after we become positive, then, and I always felt for the children, they'd be in there for months and months. Indian children from way from home. We had one television that we would let them stay up on Saturday night, and we'd sit with them to watch a hockey game. Oh, that was a fun night.
So was this on the tuberculosis ward? The tuberculosis ward at the sanitarium?
Yeah, they were at TV. But they'd be in there for years, some of those children. And then after we come out, we went to the work in the Evel building, and that was adults, you know, and I loved that. but we'd have to wheel the patients out on those long porches and wrap them up. Didn't care how cold it was, just
They
let
had
their
to go
head
out.
show.
Mm-hmm.
Felt like fresh air was one of the cures at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the Duncan girl
Oh, yes.
and who had TB, a black, that's the
Mhm.
first black person I knew that had TB. And she was Duncan girl. Where was she from?
Nova Scotia?
No, up here, Canfield or someplace.
Oh.
And she was a nice girl, but she was in the Senate a while. But then the head nurse and the head doctor, Dr. Urick and his sister, Miss Urick, said, "You girls love nursing so well, why don't you go in training to be a registered nurse?" And that was the encouragement we got. They said we would if we could. And she said, I said, but we didn't want to stay in Hamilton because you only got half day off on a weekend and a half day midweek. We'd never get home.
Unbelievable today, huh? In today's.
We'd never get home. And then they said, where would you like to go? I said, I'd love to go back to Chatham, where I'm closer to family and friends. And I said, but we don't know if they will accept us. They said, we'll give you a letter. And they gave Cora and I a letter of reference to our workmanship, that experience we had. And we were accepted at both the St. Joe Hospital in Chatham and the Chatham General. One of my best friend's mother stated she didn't feel it was time for the black people yet. And her daughter ended up being one of my best friends. And they invited me even to stay at their house. Marjorie Houston, I'll never forget it.
Wow.
So we were accepted and went in training in 1948 at the Chatham General Hospital. Many rejections. I had one girl who was from Port Arthur as a classmate. She had never seen black people before. And her dad was the head of an insurance company. And she said to me one day, Oda, I like you. I didn't know any black people, but you're my friend. And one day I couldn't find my toothbrush, because we all were limited with our belongings. Here, use mine, she said. And how many people are you going to get that's going to say use my
toothbrush?
Well, we were happy. Honey, when we took a bath
day
there.
and age, they ain't making it.
Huh?
I said, even in this day and age, they're not making that.
So, Idolla, your background is in business? Were you like an executive secretary or something like that?
No, I was a technical advisor to
Okay.
the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what was your schooling that set you up for that work?
High school,
Mm-hmm.
graduated from high school.
Mm-hmm.
1 year in university.
Mm-hmm. Where was that?
In just outside, oh God, isn't that terrible? In Belleville, just outside of Belleville. This was so long ago, you know, you forget these things. Right. Yeah.
Okay. And so how old were you when you started as the technical advisor? How did you get to that job?
Right. Well, I was in. I had applied. What happened was, I had always planned on going in nursing when I graduated from high school, and graduated from high school, and there were 4 of us girls that had all gone through public school and high school. together, and we were all going in nursing. But I was the youngest one, and in order to go to nursing, you had to be 18, right, at that time. And if you weren't 18, then you had to have the consent of your parents. I had filled out all the papers and everything, and then this business of age came up. So I brought the papers home for my father and mother. Father refused to sign it.
Wow.
And I said, why? You know I've been planning it. I'm not having any child of mine going to the hospital and giving men bedpans and having to... Oh, talk about it.
Wow.
And you didn't argue.
Exactly.
You
As
just
your dad.
accepted it. So that was it. That was me in nursing. There was
So
no way.
what year was that, Idolla?
Oh dear, that was what, 1950, 1951?
So when you started your job as a technical advisor, how many other people of color were there in your workplace?
Well, first of all, before I did that, I worked for I worked with the School for the Blind, first for a short while, and had talked to a friend of the family, was Laura Benevry, and she was with the government and worked with the unemployment insurance. And so she had said, why don't you complete an application? You have to government, you had to go for an examination, and so that's what I did, because I really didn't like university, and I really didn't care too much for, working for, I worked for the blind for a while after that. So I said, okay, I'll see what happens. So anyway, make a long story short, I came to the top of the list and was offered the job in the government. So that's how I got to started working with the government. And so I worked there. I was with the Brantford Unemployment Insurance Office, and had a good friend there, Mary Callan, and I, a white girl. We chummed together and went on holidays and everything together. I forget how many years I was there. And then they did away with this part of the government that people used to come in, and she was one of the people that did this, and they transferred it to Toronto, so she had to go to Toronto to work. Well, she didn't like it. She was a white girl, of course, and so she was after me all the time. Why don't you come to Toronto? There's all kinds of positions there, and I thought, oh, I was trying a competition to go and live in Toronto, So she kept that up. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I said, I know I'm not going to get the job, so I'll just, that'll keep her quiet, Used to go down and visit her. And what happened? I hit the top of the list of the exam. So that was a promotion as well, a higher position. So that's how I went to Toronto.
So did anyone have issues with you being in an elevated position?
If they did, I wasn't looking for anything. And I think that in the position that I went, I had to study the manual for the government for, I guess maybe I was in training 3 or 4 weeks. And then when I came back, I was like training people, you know? And it, maybe there was, but in all the time that I ever worked with the government, I never ever had this feeling that, that
That's
was
interesting.
prejudicial.
That's interesting because that's a very different story than
Yes.
Ona's story, her
Mhm.
experience.
Yes,
That's interesting.
yes.
That's interesting.
And so then after that, I wrote programs for other individuals to train and instructed, and I traveled through the government, and until I retired, I worked in Ottawa, I trained Toronto.
Good for you.
Yes,
That's
they
amazing.
flew me all over to do the training.
So when did you retire, Idolla?
Oh my
Probably
goodness.
easier to tell me how
I
old you were as
know
opposed to what
that.
year it was.
Yes, and I worked. I was born in '33, and I worked for the government for 33 years, and I started when I was 17, 18, 17, because
Yeah, because your dad didn't let you go.
yeah,
let you
too
go to
young
nursing.
go. Always remember that.
Wow.
But some of the stories I heard about, some of my friends in the hospitals, I thought, thank God I didn't go.
So this sort of connects back, Ona, to the question that I'd asked you before Idolla came about any sort of what I would say problematic interactions between you and your colleagues or you and your patients because you were an African Canadian woman. Mm-hmm.
Well, you'd get the odd patient would look up and see, look at, get your black hands off me. I said, you'll be waiting a long time before you get a good hand. And, oh yeah.
That's amazing.
One I got so angry with one night, get your hands off me. I hit her on the butt because we had to turn her over. And she looked up and saw it was me and a white girl. She didn't want me helping the girl. Well, that upset me. I said, well, the day will come when we might be the only ones given the service. What are you going to do then? But it made a strong person out of me. Even a lot of my workmates, back in the afternoons, we had a work list. Patients in the morning, and some give medicine, others would do the dressings, and that. But a one assistant head nurse on the ward would always give me the dressing room to clean and the utility room every day. I got angry one day. I said, see, they're up there doing the medicine. I'm a registered nurse, the same as my friend. So I went up to the desk. I said, Miss Jeffrey, she was the head nurse. I'm going to change wards. I can't take Miss, what was her name anyway, Petrie. She always gives me the dirty jobs. And I'm a registered nurse with a number the same as Miss Morrison, Miss so-and-so and so. How come they won't let me try? Are they scared I'm going to kill something? Miss Morse, you're not leaving me. You're not leaving me, she said. I'll speak to her when she comes back on her time off. They changed her. They didn't change me. I said, Cleta always said, Ona, speak up. If you don't speak up, they'll leave you in the basement all your life.
Mm-hmm.
And Cleta taught me a lot. She was stronger. She was a school teacher. But you always said, you always stand back.
Mm-hmm.
You've gone to school, you earned your rewards, and now you're scared to speak up. So that taught me something. There, from that day on, I would take a no foolishness from nobody. But that's all it took, you know. But you'd get older people that were already prejudiced,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and that's all they knew. They didn't want to live beside you, nothing to do with you, till they found out if you nick me, your blood's the same color as mine, and we all got the same organs of the same color.
Mm-hmm.
With color is only skin deep.
Mm-hmm. Ona, I was
I, in all the years that I worked for the government, I can honestly say I never ever encountered anything like that. You know, and I don't know why it was, you know. I don't know whether it was because I knew what, and I was there to teach them, you know, I was an instructor, you know,
Yeah,
and I was an official of the government, but it just never dawned on me, you know, it just never, and it never occurred to me that, you know, sometimes you'd see people say, when I went into an office, you know, they're all white people, this is
yeah.
the
But
new trainer, this is the new supervisor, and they looked, you know, but they never ever said anything, and they never ever reacted. I can honestly say
You were
that
fortunate.
this is why it's so strange to me, you know, and
I think your experience was strange.
Yeah.
well,
I think
that's
you were
what
the exception, not the
everybody
rule.
says.
Yes.
Yes, that's what everybody says. I can't and I said, maybe they were, but I wasn't looking for.
You
And,
were,
Mhm.
You know, and I might see somebody look at somebody when they were introduced, but when I got up and I talked to them and I told, they knew I knew, and they were not having any foolishness. But
That's
is
so
really
interesting.
strange.
I'm glad that I've got the two of you here,
With
and
two
we're
different
having two
stories,
very
huh?
very different stories. That's
Two
really
very
great.
different stories.
Yeah. Ona, I
Now,
was looking.
when I finished business college, I
Mhm.
got top marks as a secretary, but
Mhm.
couldn't get a job. So one person said to me, why don't you apply for a government job then, back then? And because there was one black woman from Chatham who worked in the government, she was in Ottawa. And I thought, there's no way am I going all the way to Ottawa to get a government job. But the girl said, perhaps you could get a job that way. So that turned me around. But you know, I'm happy I changed. Nursing gives me the more caring sensation of people. I love the older people because I always thought that could be my mother, my grandmother, and I just love caring for the older people and make them comfortable.
They accepted it. They
I was
appreciated what you did.
yesterday. I was, because Labor Day we're often talking about unions, right? So I realized that the nursing union, Ontario Nurses Association,
Yeah, one day.
is the same as your name.
Yeah,
Ah.
yeah.
I was just
How
like,
did
look
you-
at that.
When it came in, they said, oh, you're important now.
Yeah.
I can hear them at the general once we got a union. Oh, one day I said, see, I knew I'm going to be somebody that'll notice me
That's
one day.
right. They'll know
Yeah.
my name now.
So Anna, did you see any changes to your work, to your workload or your work experience once the union came in? It was like in the 70s, right?
Yep, I
Mhm.
worked at General till, well, when I was 65, so
Mhm.
that was what, 1990.
Mhm.
I had many good years there. I worked at our hospital where I trained at Chatham General. I worked in the pharmacy 1 year with two registered nurses, and I was the one who would go around back then giving all the needles, the penicillins, the streptomycin. I had a whole tray, and I have to go to all the wards to do that. I worked there for a year, and then you filled your bottles would come from all the wards for refills, and I did that. Then that's when we decided, four of us gals said, I said, girls, Hamilton is a nice city. I'd already been there. So back then, girls loved to move. We rented a car and came to Hamilton. Hamilton, Hamilton General stayed in an old house down the north end Hamilton. We said, boy, we can't live here. So we went to the Canucks. I said, they may not let me in, girls. I'm a different color. They said, well, if you can't stay, we're not staying.
Mm.
Well, we thought we were big time.
Mm.
We got a suite with adjoining rooms.
Oh my God.
They let me
In the
in. They
Canuck.
never said anything. Got a bottle of wine and we booped it up. And went for our interview the next morning at the Hamilton General. Then we were all
Together.
accepted, and I worked on medicine women. Two worked in the OR. They loved the surgery, and another one worked on another ward. But they stayed. But two of them went back home because she missed her boyfriend. He drove for a Canadian Tire, so once a week he would come down and bring us some supplies. Take them off the truck and come and visit us. We were living upstairs in an old house on Emerald Street North, upstairs. And so we'd entertain him, and he'd bring us something every week that we might like.
Nice.
That was Mary Lou's boyfriend. So anyway, and Dorothy, she went back when Mary Lou went back. She went to California. She since passed. Mary Lou passed. But Mary Lou was my best friend and Paul's godmother. And she had two little boys. And then Marge met Norm McMullen, and he worked at the Spectator. She's still living in Ancaster at long-term care. And of course, I met Fonts through the church, all black. And I said to the kids, you gotta come to Stewart Memorial Church. They got a choir. Every Sunday night was special. I'd bring the girls to sit at the back, and boy, they could hear Byron Waite coming in now. That bass. And Nita Tolliver, Ed Busby on the organ. And we had a good time, so we'd be standing out afterwards.
Anita
And
saying,
along came Alfonso and Link Alexander. Alfonso, you girls want to ride? That's when you got fresh, eh? You girls, we got in the car, we start laughing. You want a drink? No, Fonz didn't even drink. Link, so they took us to this foot-long hot dog place there on the beach strip. I said, my God, they could get a hot dog and sit in the front seat and eat, and it'd be hanging over the back. Mary Lou got to laughing. But anyway, he'd always pick us up and take us home after church on Sunday night. So him and I got friendly. He was a divorced man. He had one of those strange marriages. That's how it was, so that's how we met.
Oh, that's interesting.
Everything back then was at church.
yes, well,
That's
that's
the
where
only
you
place you
went.
could go.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the girls that were with me really enjoyed it, But Marge and I are still good friends. She lost her husband 3 years ago. Yeah.
So
So
Idolla,
that's why I stayed, and after I retired, I worked volunteered up at Wellness House for another 20 years.
20
Every
years.
Friday I'd go up.
Wow.
Were you there for, was that 20
Wow.
years?
Yeah, I
remember when you
got
started.
my 20-year pin.
That's
Got my
amazing.
20-year pin, but after I fell and hurt my knee, remember I was
Yes.
carrying some trays with something, and there was something on the floor of some food stuff, and down
You
I
slipped.
went with plates in my hand. I slid, and I fell. I said, "Don't touch me." I could put my hand right under my kneecap. That I said I've damaged something. So they called the ambulance and called Paul, and that's when I went to Joe Brandt, and they did surgery at late night because they were so busy. And Paul picked the car up, and he came to see me. Yeah. So after that, I only went back for special occasions.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Maureen would pick me up, and they always wanted me to come for special occasions.
Mm,
And I still hear from them.
that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Idolla, what's your union related experience? Were you CUPE? What would have been the union that as a government worker? What was the trade union that you were part of? Usually it's
It's a PF something.
okay.
Yeah, public service. I was never really,
Mm-hmm.
involved in union. Right? I don't know. I just worked. I just worked.
Okay. This is great. This is great. But Ona, I want to ask you a few questions about fonts, if that's okay. Yeah. Because when I first met him, I don't know how we ended up talking about this, but I found out that he had been a chauffeur for. Was it an executive from Ford?
Pardon?
Was it an executive from Ford that Fonts drove for?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
He was the exec driver for quite a while, and then once they got rid of some of the high class stuff, they started cutting back. He worked in the mail room, till the year he had to have heart surgery. He said, "I'm finished. I polish shoes," and he was good. He'd take a rose every morning from our garden and put it on the secretary's desk. Got vases for all of them, and take my best rose. One day I went up to get a rose, and I liked hers. He took a rose for every secretary every morning, and filled her about clean, shine shoes. When he first started, he had jack of all trades, fill all the water jugs. That was the beginning, because he had to make the job.
Right.
Yeah, it was up to him, Al, and he was always a bartender, because we were always having parties and that. And those that couldn't drive home afterwards, he'd have to drive them home. But they had more liquor and stuff, and he said they liked Fonts because he don't
didn't
drink.
so he was the
But he
designated
sure knew how to
driver.
mix drinks. Yeah.
He was a
So
good
he
good
did that
mixologist.
for quite a while. Then they
Bartender.
cut them frills off.
Mhm.
Yes.
Later
They
years,
started
and
to
that's when he
cut
worked
back.
in the mail room.
Wow. And before he went to Ford, was he a porter before he went to
Yeah.
Ford?
THMD station, the train station. Him and Fred Holland.
Yes.
Fred Holland be drunk every day. He was Reverend Holland's brother, but you didn't know him. I don't think I
No,
know.
I never.
Yeah.
But I heard of it.
Oh
You
yeah, but once he drove a car and hit something, he said that'll be the last time
Drive.
last drink I take, and that's what Fred did.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Interesting. So
But during his younger years, he took an electrician course, and he enjoyed that. But once I think he touched some live wire and
Yeah.
fell and broke his arm. He said, I don't know if I'm fit for electrician.
Lucky he
Yeah.
didn't get electrocuted.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But Reverend Holland is the one who got him started at the THMD station. And they used to have a private car that Reverend Holland would go on you, and he got fonts onto that. He'd have to cook, and they had the private car for the head guy and his family, and he'd have to cook, clean their clothes, and well, you porter of all things.
Porter.
But he liked that too. They traveled, you know.
So how old was Fonts when he worked as a porter? How old would he have been
Where?
when he was with the
At Forge or?
No, before you were talking about when he was a porter at THMB. How
that
old would he
be
been?
Back in he was born in 25, be 40, in the 40s.
Okay.
Because when I first met him, he was a porter at THMD station.
So I had asked you if you'd had any issues around racism in your work as a nurse. So I'm curious about Alphonse's experience as well, as a porter, as all those jobs that he did, and then eventually when he was the chauffeur for that Ford exec.
They looked for a black boy when they were porters.
Oh, yeah.
They get off the train and just say, pick up their luggage.
Black people can't get them now. The
No.
white boys are getting
No,
people.
they say,
That's
can I
right.
have a porter? Don't
Really?
come a white guy now, you know. See, Font said they didn't want them jobs a long time back.
That's right.
Now, the black boys don't want those jobs
That's
either.
right.
Yeah, but that's what
Times
he
have
did.
changed.
And he hurt his back carrying luggage. They have heavy luggage
Oh,
and pushing them on that trolley. And that's when he hurt his back. And he was at the Henderson. Back in the day then, they couldn't even put their foot on the floor or anything. They had to stand in for so many days before they let them touch the floor. I remember we used to have to give them bedpans in the urinal. Don't put your foot on the floor, just lay them out straight on these boards.
And things have changed so much now
Yes.
because
Oh,
they
yeah.
try to get you out of bed the
next
day
day
that you have the surgery, right?
Right, that's when the therapy starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was happy to go to Forge to get him out of the safe carrying bags. And once you got a damaged back, he used to have to lay on the floor every morning to do his exercise. But he was always so diligent. I said, how can you do this? But you know, the porter helped him. It was the tips. He didn't get much of a salary, but the tips. He'd come home in the morning. He said, come, Paul. Paul was just little. Come, Paul. See? Oh, Daddy, we got money. Might be dimes, quarters, nickels. But Paul was not. He kept thinking we were really rich. But you know, he saved his tip money. And when we went on a trip, he emptied that thing he was saving it in and had enough for expenses. It's amazing how little things add up.
Yeah.
This girl made him one of these, looked like a little pig. And you know, they make them out of paper. What do you call that?
Paper mache?
Yeah. And he had it filled on our first trip. Yeah.
Wow.
He said, no, I'm saving it for, he'd patch it up and save it for our next trip.
That's excellent. This is good. This is good. Thank you.
You know, when you think of the day, what we came through, it made a strong person out of you.
You had to.
Because a lot of people said,
But you don't
And
think
you're
about
still-
it at the time. It's now when you think back about the things that happened and the things that you did, you think, you know, our eyes, I don't know. It's amazing, really.
Yeah. Well, they said, oh, I wouldn't do that. I said, look, If you want to survive, you got to
did it.
dig a
You don't
ditch.
even think about it. You just
No.
do it.
You know, you did. My dad couldn't get over people going on welfare. Oh, I'll go up to the city, township. We lived in the country. And this family, the man went up there, went on welfare. My dad got so angry, he was working a farm,
Pride.
horse,
Proud.
team of
That's what it was.
horses, driving behind, didn't have a tractor. We were poor. They were digging ditches. Back then, for drainage, you worked for the township, digging ditches. And he'd come home all muddy and that, and we'd be crying to help him. And he had ulcers. He and my mother keep saying, get the warm milk for your dad, get the milk. And then he'd be throwing up. But how they worked through what they had to do to survive for his family. Yeah, it wasn't easy. And my mom the same. Yeah, but God bless them, you know.
Yeah.
I think they're still looking down. Oh, are you still around?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You're still around.
Yes, still here.
Mm-hmm.
Telling it like it
Right?
was, huh?
You're telling it like it was. Exactly.
Yeah. Telling it like it was.
This is great. Thank you so much. This is fabulous. This is fabulous.
What more do you need?
No, I'm good.
Are you
Good.
good?
Yeah. If you would, we were talking about. You said you thought you had photographs of Fonts with his chauffeur's cap. And if you have any pictures of you with your uniform and your nurse's cap, I don't need it now. Just when you get a chance.
Look in the hallway. We'll see one of my nursing caps.
Okay.
On the hallway, that little stand there with Paula. Not that one.
Not that one.
No, around the corner, across from the bathroom.
Okay.
In that little box there, you'll see me with my graduation cap and stuff. My friend.
Yes. When you think back about it, you forget about these things, until you start talking about it.
Yeah.
It brings back memories. Just
Like you miss your sister Jean because with Cleta, all we could think about all the time was the old times you talked about. Do you see it, Bev?
Not yet.
In that box was Paul and Al's picture up there
I see it now.
across from the bathroom, and then there's a picture of me at my graduation.
Got it. Okay. So I'm going to take a picture of this.